Have you ever noticed how someone only starts missing you once you stop showing up for them? When your messages stop coming in, when your voice fades from their daily routine, when your presence once taken for granted suddenly disappears. That's not coincidence. That's the power of silence. In a world where everyone is trying to be louder, more visible, more available, the person who knows how to step back becomes unforgettable. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. It's the moment when your absence becomes your voice, and that voice echoes louder than any text, call, or confrontation ever could. See, when you constantly give your attention to someone who's stopped valuing it, you're teaching them that your presence is free, effortless, disposable. But when you withdraw with quiet confidence, something shifts. He starts to wonder. He begins to feel the emptiness that your presence used to fill. And that's when realization strikes. You were never ordinary. This silence isn't about manipulation. It's about reclaiming balance. It's the emotional pause that reminds both of you of your worth. Sometimes love needs space to breathe. Sometimes attraction needs absence to rekindle. When you stop chasing, you give energy a chance to realign, and that's when real attraction reignites. In this video, we'll break down exactly why your silence can do what your words never could. How absence becomes magnetic, how emotional distance builds desire, and how you can shift from overgiving to effortlessly attracting. Because the moment you stop trying to be seen, that's often the moment you become unforgettable. Stay till the end, because understanding this shift could change not just your relationship, but the way you value yourself forever. When a man begins to pull away, it can feel confusing, painful, and even personal, but it rarely is. His distance often has less to do with you and more to do with how he processes connection. See, most men are conditioned to value independence, to associate space with control, and to protect their emotions by retreating when things start to feel too intense. It's not that he suddenly stopped caring, it's that he's trying to recalibrate his sense of self within the relationship. Men fall in love differently than women. While women often feel closer through emotional sharing and consistency, men experience attachment through pursuit, challenge, and appreciation of absence. When he starts to sense emotional pressure, too many questions, too much reassurance seeking, or constant availability, his instinct may tell him to step back. This isn't always rejection. It's his subconscious way of restoring balance and regaining a sense of autonomy. Here's where most people get it wrong. When he pulls away, your first impulse is to chase, explain, or fix it. But the moment you do that, you feed into his fear of losing space. Instead of feeling your value, he feels your anxiety. The chase dynamic reverses. You start pursuing, and he stops investing. That's why giving him your absence is so powerful. It shifts the energy. It gives him space to feel the contrast between your presence and your silence. During that silence, something subtle happens. Without words, you remind him of your uniqueness. He starts remembering the comfort of your energy, the sound of your laugh, the peace he felt when you were near. But most importantly, he realizes what it feels like not to have you around. This isn't manipulation, it's natural psychology. People value what they fear losing. When you stop trying to convince him of your worth, he begins to rediscover it on his own. Your absence triggers reflection. He begins to think, not because you told him to, but because your silence left space for thought. That's how emotional gravity works. The more you pull back into your center, the more magnetic your presence becomes. So the next time he starts to drift, don't chase. Let the silence speak for you. Because when you do, you're no longer just a choice. You become the one he can't stop thinking about. When a man starts losing interest, the first thing most women notice isn't what he says, it's what he stops saying. The long conversations turn into short replies, the energy feels off, and suddenly you're the only one holding the connection together. That feeling of emotional distance triggers fear, and that fear often leads to the biggest mistake women make, trying harder to win him back. You start over-communicating, explaining, apologizing, chasing his attention, doing everything to bring back the version of him you miss. But what you don't realize is that all that effort comes from anxiety, not confidence. And anxiety never attracts love, it repels it. When a man pulls away, your instinct tells you to fight for the relationship. But the more you fight, the more power you hand over. Because what once felt like mutual interest starts to feel one-sided, and that imbalance kills attraction faster than anything. Men are wired to value what they earn and respect what challenges them. When you make yourself too available, too predictable, or too eager to please, you remove the very mystery that drew him to you in the first place. The truth is, he can't miss what never goes missing. The moment you start chasing, you stop being the prize. You start showing him that he's in control of your emotions, and no man feels deep attraction for someone he can emotionally control. That's why your silence, your absence, and your calm detachment are more powerful than any words you could ever say. They remind him that your energy isn't guaranteed, that your presence has value, and that your time is a privilege, not a given. Instead of trying to pull him closer, shift your focus inward. Ask yourself, what energy am I showing right now? If it's desperation, fear, or panic, he feels that immediately. But if it's confidence, self-assurance, and peace, he feels that too, and that's when curiosity returns. Because what keeps a man intrigued isn't constant attention, it's emotional balance. It's the quiet confidence of a woman who knows she doesn't have to chase love to be worthy of it. Every time you try to prove your worth, you accidentally communicate the opposite, that you don't believe in it yourself. The women who hold a man's interest aren't the ones who do the most, they're the ones who know when to do nothing. That stillness, that grace, that restraint, it's what makes him look back and realize, she didn't fight for me, and that's exactly why I want to fight for her. So when he loses interest, don't lose yourself, let him feel the quiet that follows your absence. Because silence doesn't mean surrender, it means strength. It's the moment he starts to remember who you were before he took your presence for granted, and it's the moment he begins to question why he ever let you slip away. Absence is often misunderstood as a form of disinterest or punishment, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful emotional tools in human connection. When you step back from someone, especially someone who has grown used to your constant presence, you create a shift in energy that words alone can't achieve. It's not about manipulation or games, it's about allowing space for awareness to grow. People can't value what they never have to miss. When you give someone the gift of your absence, you're giving them the space to feel your value, not just see it. Think about how the human mind works. When something is always available, it fades into the background. It becomes routine, expected, almost invisible. But the moment that constant disappears, the void it leaves behind becomes impossible to ignore. Suddenly, the energy you once brought into their life, your warmth, your laughter, your comfort, becomes something they can't easily replace. That's how absence creates emotional impact. It triggers reflection, and reflection is what reignites appreciation. For men especially, emotional realization rarely happens in conversation, it happens in silence. While women tend to process emotions through connection, men often process through distance. They need space to think, to compare, to feel the absence of what once centered them. When you stop reaching out, when you stop showing up the way you used to, it creates a contrast, and contrast is what makes value stand out. He begins to replay moments, remember details, and recognize the peace that your presence brought into his life. That recognition doesn't happen when you're still trying to convince him. It happens when you stop. What makes absence so powerful is that it shifts the emotional dynamic. It takes the focus off him and puts it back on you. Instead of waiting, you start rebuilding. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. That self-focus radiates confidence, and confidence always pulls people in. Because it's not just your physical absence that he feels, it's your energetic withdrawal. It's the realization that your world doesn't revolve around him, and that you were whole long before he came along. That realization hits differently. It's humbling, grounding, and magnetic all at once. Absence is a mirror. It shows him what life feels like without your energy, but it also shows you what peace feels like without the chaos of chasing validation. And the more you anchor yourself in that peace, the more powerful your presence becomes when you choose to return. Emotional impact isn't created through words, it's created through contrast. So when you walk away, don't see it as losing someone. See it as reclaiming your space, your calm, and your worth. Because sometimes the loudest way to be heard is to say nothing at all, and let your silence remind them what your presence truly meant. Pain has a way of breaking you open. But inside that breaking is an invitation to meet yourself again. When someone pulls away, when a relationship starts to fade, the first thing you often lose isn't them, it's you. You lose your sense of calm, your confidence, your center. You start thinking that if you could just fix yourself, do more, say more, be more, maybe things would go back to how they were. But that kind of thinking keeps you stuck. The truth is, pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to redirect you. It's the universe's way of saying, you've given enough outward, now it's time to turn that energy inward. Self-focus isn't about ignoring your emotions or pretending you don't care. It's about choosing to use your pain as a stepping stone instead of a cage. When you take the energy you've been wasting trying to figure him out and start investing it into understanding yourself, you change the entire story. You stop asking, why did he leave, and start asking, what do I need to learn from this? That shift transforms heartbreak into growth. Because suddenly, you're not waiting for someone to make you feel worthy. You're creating that worth from the inside out. There's something undeniably powerful about a woman who redirects her pain into self-improvement. When you start healing, your energy changes. You begin to see that your peace is more attractive than your pursuit. You start to glow differently, not because someone loves you, but because you finally learned to love yourself enough to stop begging for what's not aligned with you. That kind of energy is magnetic. It pulls in everything that's meant for you, effortlessly. Every great transformation starts with a moment of silence, the kind where you sit with your pain, breathe through it, and let it teach you what chaos never could. You'll realize that every unanswered message, every disappointment, every goodbye was actually a redirection toward yourself. Pain is powerful because it strips away illusion. It forces you to rebuild on a stronger foundation, one that's no longer based on validation, but on value. When you start focusing on your own growth, you no longer move from desperation, you move from peace. You no longer chase, you attract. Because people can sense when you've done the inner work. They feel the strength in your calm, the confidence in your silence, the grace in your boundaries. That's what true power looks like. Not control, but composure. So instead of asking how to make him notice you again, ask how to make yourself proud again. Heal, evolve, elevate. Let your glow up be your response to every heartbreak. Because pain doesn't define you, your ability to turn it into purpose does. And when you master that, you don't just get stronger, you become untouchable. Knowing when to reach out and when to stay silent is one of the hardest lessons to master, especially when your emotions are tangled between hope and heartbreak. Your instinct will often tell you to fix things, to send that text, to call, to explain yourself one more time, because silence feels unbearable when your heart is still open. But the truth is, silence is often the most powerful form of communication you have. It creates space, tension, and reflection. Three things that constant talking can never achieve. When a man pulls away or goes distant, your timing matters more than your words. If you reach out while your emotions are raw, you're not communicating, you're reacting. And reactions rarely lead to connection. They lead to regret. When you message too soon, you hand over your power before he's had the chance to feel your absence. You interrupt the very process that makes him realize what you meant to him. Reaching out from a place of anxiety only reinforces one message that he can disappear, and you'll still be there, waiting to fill the silence for him. That pattern doesn't build respect. It builds complacency. Staying silent doesn't mean you're playing games. It means you're valuing your energy. Silence gives both of you room to breathe and reflect. It allows him to miss your voice, to remember your presence, and to wonder about your absence. That curiosity is what reignites interest. When you stop reaching out, you create emotional contrast, and contrast is what makes people recognize value. Because it's not until something goes quiet that we start to notice the noise it used to fill. The right time to reach out is when you've regained emotional balance. When you can message without expecting a specific response. When you can speak from peace, not panic. If you still feel that tightness in your chest, that anxious need for closure or validation, that's your sign to wait. Because any communication driven by fear will only push him further. But when you've done the work, when you can reach out calmly, from a space of self-respect rather than need, your words carry a completely different energy. They feel grounded, mature, and confident. That's when communication can truly reconnect instead of repel. Remember, silence isn't empty, it's full of meaning. Every day you choose not to reach out, you're teaching him how to value your presence. You're showing him that your attention is earned, not owed. And when the silence finally breaks, it's not desperation he'll hear in your voice, it's strength. So reach out only when your peace is intact. Stay silent when your emotions are loud. Because love built on chasing fades fast, but love built on calm confidence always finds its way back, and this time on equal ground. Confidence and boundaries are the twin pillars of self-worth, and together they shape how others treat you. When you know your value, you stop accepting half-effort connections. You stop settling for almost love and start aligning with people who meet you with the same energy you give. The truth is, confidence doesn't come from being perfect or always in control. It comes from being secure enough to walk away when something doesn't honor your peace. Boundaries are how you protect that peace, and confidence is how you enforce it without guilt. Building value starts internally. You can't expect anyone to see your worth if you keep hiding it behind fear or insecurity. Confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. It shows up in how you carry yourself, how you speak, and how you handle silence. It's the calm tone in your voice when you say, "I deserve more," and mean it. Every time you choose yourself, when you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop tolerating disrespect, you increase your value in every relationship you have. Because people notice consistency, not begging. They respect energy that feels grounded, not desperate. Boundaries are not walls. They're gates. They don't shut people out. They filter who gets access. When you set a boundary, you're not punishing anyone, you're protecting your peace. You're saying, "This is how I expect to be treated if you want to be part of my world." And that energy shifts everything. It commands respect without ever needing to demand it. The moment you enforce your boundaries, you teach others how to value you. The moment you let them slide, you teach others that your needs are negotiable, and that's where attraction and respect begin to fade. What keeps people's attention, both in relationships and in your audience, is authenticity. When you stand firm in who you are, people feel it. They can sense when your confidence is real, not loud, not forced, but steady. That's what makes you magnetic. A confident woman with boundaries doesn't chase validation, she attracts alignment. She doesn't fear losing someone, she fears losing herself trying to please them. That's the shift that changes everything. If he once took you for granted, your new confidence and boundaries will make him see you differently. Not because you're trying to prove a point, but because your energy no longer revolves around him. You've evolved. You've learned that love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-sacrifice. And nothing builds value faster than a woman who knows when to give, when to pause, and when to walk away. So carry yourself with quiet strength. Be kind but firm. Be open but selective. And remember, confidence isn't about being chosen. It's about knowing you're a prize even when no one is watching. Boundaries don't push love away. They protect the space where real love can grow. Making someone miss you isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about creating space for reflection, appreciation, and curiosity. Most women think that attention is earned through constant presence, messages, and effort. But the reality is the opposite. Absence amplifies value. When you stop chasing, stop explaining, and stop overgiving, you create a vacuum that naturally draws attention. People miss what they no longer have. And absence allows him to feel the weight of your presence in his life, something he might have taken for granted before. The key is to focus on your own energy instead of his reactions. When you reclaim your time, your emotions, and your priorities, you automatically shift from someone who is available on demand to someone whose presence feels precious. That shift is magnetic because it signals self-respect and independence. He begins to notice the little things he overlooked. Your laugh, your warmth, the way you make moments feel special. And when those small details start to stand out in the quiet, he starts to feel your absence emotionally before he even realizes it mentally. Making him miss you isn't about withdrawing love. It's about elevating it. It's about showing that your happiness doesn't depend on him. By investing in yourself, pursuing your passions, and living life fully, you create a version of yourself that he can't ignore. People are drawn to energy, not words. So while he's used to taking your attention for granted, Your shift in energy becomes the wake-up call. It reminds him that what he had, your presence, your affection, your consistency, isn't guaranteed. Patience is critical in this process. Absence works because it allows time for perspective. When someone is always there, it's easy to forget their value. When they step back, it forces a moment of introspection. He starts to realize what he's missing, what he truly wants, and why he took it for granted. And that realization sticks longer than any argument, explanation, or pleading ever could. Your calm detachment communicates strength and self-assurance, which are far more attractive than desperation. At the same time, absence teaches you something equally important: the art of self-worth. When you stop bending over backward for someone who doesn't reciprocate, you begin to honor your own boundaries. You learn to value your time, your energy, and your emotions. And in doing so, you create a standard for the type of love you're willing to accept. This isn't about testing him or playing mind games. It's about embodying a life where your presence is earned, cherished, and celebrated. Finally, remember that making him miss you isn't about forcing him back. It's about creating a space where he naturally comes to appreciate you. Your absence becomes your statement, calm, confident, and self-assured. You show him, without saying a word, that you are whole, independent, and magnetic. And in that quiet strength, he begins to realize that losing you was never an option he should have taken lightly. Your energy does the talking, and that energy leaves an imprint that lasts far longer than any conversation ever could. Your absence is more powerful than you realize. It's not about playing games, punishing someone, or proving a point. It's about reclaiming your energy, your peace, and your self-respect. When you step back, you create space for reflection, curiosity, and genuine appreciation. People often don't notice the value of what they have until it's no longer immediately available. That's the subtle magic of absence. It highlights your worth without a single word being spoken. Many women believe that staying visible, constantly messaging, or over-investing attention will keep someone interested. But in reality, overexposure dulls attraction. The more predictable and always present you are, the less space there is for desire to grow. Absence, on the other hand, introduces contrast. It reminds him what life feels like with you and without you. That emotional contrast is what sparks longing, reflection, and renewed interest. It's the natural mechanism of human attachment. People appreciate most what they realize is not guaranteed. Your absence is also an act of self-empowerment. When you step away from chasing someone, you're choosing yourself first. You're prioritizing your own happiness, growth, and inner peace over external validation. This mindset is magnetic because it communicates confidence and strength. It tells the member, power doesn't come from clinging, it comes from restraint. It comes from holding your space, honoring your boundaries, and showing that your energy is precious. When you embrace your absence as your power, you no longer operate out of fear or desperation. You act from calm confidence, and that, above all else, is irresistible. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's influence. Your absence isn't loss, it's your strength. And the moment you fully own that, everything changes.